Hi guys, how you doing? This is Richard Sachs, your host on Lost Arts Radio. This is a Saturday show called Church of the Essene Teacher. It's the extra part where you actually get to talk with me if you want to. And I'll try to remember to give out the number. I usually totally forget all about that. So before going any further, let me just tell you that for later. I'm going to talk for a while first because there's some things that I'd like to go over with you and see what you think about. But later on, if you want to call and be part of the show, the number to get in is 657-383-1002. It doesn't mean you can't call now if you want to, because you can just listen. And I think there's something that you hit on the keypad that says you want to talk. Makes a little question mark come up on our board, so we'll be able to see you. But anyway, Church of the Essene Teacher, what's that? Well, I didn't have any intention to make this a church. I'm not coming from a religious point of view at all. I mean, at all. But it's in reference to the Essene Teacher that's talked about in the Essene Gospel of Peace, Volume 1, which is a book I ran into in 1975, and that was about 10 years after I started serious scientific health research, holistic health research, and experimentation, because I had a lot of serious health problems to overcome myself, and I was in the hands of the medical establishment at that time. Really well-meaning and brilliant doctor people who were killing me, and I managed to not be finished off by that, and I dumped it, and I decided I had to find out what causes disease, what's causing how you feel, right now on all these different levels. Why does your body get sick, in quotes? What does that mean? What's that about? Is that a positive response of the body trying to take care of itself, or is that something bad that, some evil germ comes and tries to wipe you out, or, what's going on? And I really didn't know. One of my first health teacher that I knew of was a chiropractor, starting in about, 64, 65, named James McKimmey. He was a brilliant healer. Rarely touched his patients physically at all. Very powerful. A lot of great healings he did. But he always told people that, yeah, you might get some help by my energy. He was one of those energy healers that could give you a boost and make a lot of things get better almost immediately in some cases. But he said, if you go back to the habits in your life that caused the problem, it's going to come back. And a few of them were willing to, start changing things. But most of them weren't, and they eventually had relapses of various kinds, or they got some other problem that was caused by mistakes they were making. So what I, was looking for was kind of what are the laws of nature, what are the principles upon which this is happening? And usually people don't even start caring about that stuff until they're in really bad shape. That was true with me. I just got in really bad shape earlier than some people. But it's rare to run into some person who's very wise as a kid when they still feel good and say, wait a minute, I'm not just going to keep feeling good automatically in the world. And they look around them, kind of like the stories of Buddha. He was the Buddha, Gautama Buddha. I've been studying a little bit about Buddhism lately, and he was in a royal family and kind of protected from the outside world because they didn't want him to see how bad it really was, and thought that would be pretty distressing, which of course it is to anybody that's paying attention. And when he did get out, he was in, I think, some kind of a parade or something, and he was out driving in his chariot and said, "What's that?" And it was an old man, I think. And then the story is that he saw somebody sick and he saw somebody that had died. And that was a complete shock to him. So the people with wisdom, in touch with something deeper, they start realizing that while they still feel good and say, wait a minute, this is, something's going on here. Everything's degenerating, but it's doing it so slowly that nobody seems to notice. And even when they're in the middle of it, it's hard to really see clearly. So I was looking for a way to understand what controls how things degenerate and regenerate, and how can you use those? Because I didn't really feel like going through what people were calling normal old age, and I was getting a little taste of it in my teens because of being in bad shape. So that was my motivation. And I very quickly realized it was all connected to consciousness as well as physical laws of nature, and studying from teachers all over the world, and remembering what had been very clear to me shortly after I was born, which was I had some memory of several previous lifetimes before this one, and it wasn't a philosophy or a belief or anything like that. It was like you remember last week. So that had a really powerful effect on me. And then I found out, wow, I'm not the only one. There are actually documented cases of kids telling their parents where they used to live before, bringing their parents back there, pointing out the things that they had mentioned to them before they went there, sometimes gravestones. I mean, there's no question. It's just that most of us don't remember because it's usually not useful. And we need to focus on what we're doing now. But we have a long history. At least that's my experience. You don't have to agree with me. This is not a religious show at all. I want you to have whatever religion, belief, philosophy, whatever you want, because you have to be true to yourself. And that's what is supposed to be one of the great things about what America was supposed to be. And that's that as long as you don't go out looking for other people to hurt and disrespecting the rights that they have, you can live any way you want. And government does not own you. That was what was so neat about America. And unfortunately, most of it's been forgotten and lost, but there are people trying to get it back now. And if we do get it back, well, it looks like we'll get it back on a higher level. If we don't get it back in this lifetime, I mean, it's not going to destroy us. I can tell you from experience, we're not mortal beings. We're not limited and destructible. But it's still really important what we do every minute. The idea that you have to believe you're, about to be obliterated into nothing in order to pay attention to your life is not true. Because if you really understand the longer history that all of us have, you understand what we do creates our future experiences. And so we want to kind of do those and pay attention and be careful and do them the way that we want to have things work out. Otherwise, we get into situations that don't feel good, and you get tired of that eventually and say, I don't want to do this. It's ridiculous. These things that appear to come up because of unwanted circumstances or interactions with people, those are all generated from us, and the quantum physics people are just beginning to get a glimpse of that. And even then, what they're saying is that what looks like, because even though they're very clever at how they plan to destroy everything, they're not too smart, because you can't avoid the effects of what you do coming back to you multiplied. It's not some evil God wanting to punish you and throw lightning bolts and all this stuff. It's built into your consciousness, because being pure spirit, which is what we are and what we're made out of, it's always guiding us back toward self-awareness. So if we do something really self-destructive in life, it's going to make sure that we have an experience to find out why that's not a good idea. Okay, sorry, it's hard for me to do two things at once. I'm just getting a message from Doug who's saying, back up about 1 minute. Okay, Doug, it's not bad now? It's really frustrating when the sound starts falling apart. So, okay, he says it's okay. So, sorry about that. And it's really good to get feedback. Otherwise, I'm just sitting here talking. I don't know if anybody can hear anything I'm saying. So, yeah, I'm just saying that the rulers of the world who plan to destroy everything are really clever and brilliant in their plans for darkness, basically, and suffering and pain and death, which is what they're after. But they're really not too bright in the sense that they don't know what you create in your own life comes back to you multiplied. And that applies to them too. So, any of you guys that happen to be monitoring us right now or listening, you might want to really think about that. It doesn't matter who it comes from, some regular old person like me or a 5-year-old kid or whatever. The fact of it is real. So if you're finding yourself inside the negative power structure and you're consciously working on things to hurt people and enslave the population and then exterminate them, which is the plan, by the way, if you want to have a simple version of it, then your opportunity is to use your inside position to do something good for the people that you're supposed to be hurting. And if you do that, then you bring yourself good things in the future, and it changes your fate. And, you know, that brings up the question of predestination versus free will. And what I would tell you about that is that, in my experience, they're both 100% true. So you have complete free will in what you decide to do in your life. But anybody who really knows you down to the atomic level and deeper than that could predict with 100% accuracy every free will choice that you're going to make. And in that sense, it is possible to see what's in the future. But from our point of view here, it's just possible futures. And we have to go through the free will choice process to see which one we would like to make for ourselves and everybody else that we're connected to, which is everybody. So anyway, that's kind of a long roundabout explanation, but the title of the show refers to the Essene Gospel of Peace, Book 1, which I found in 1975, I think. And it's on our website, lostartsradio.com, if you ever want to look at it. You don't have to buy it. It's available as a free PDF or an audiobook, either one. And you may or may not find it of any interest, but it really struck a chord of memory in me, because I remember, you know, as anti-science and unacceptable and politically incorrect as it may be called, I remember being there. So the story is about these men, these older men who came to the teacher who was teaching the Essenes at that time, not the Essenes teaching, but he was teaching them about the laws of nature. And the whole book is about that. It's a short book, but I had already been involved for about 10 years in the health research endeavor, and so I ran into that when I was pretty deeply involved. And I spent a lot of time over the next, 40-some years after that, whatever length of time it's been, adapting that to, I guess, 42, right? It's going fast. Adapting what's taught in that book to how to use it now, because the conditions now are not the same as they were 2,000 years ago. Even physically, you know that. I mean, not just the presence of these different technologies and stuff like that, but we're subjected to all kinds of chemical toxicity and microwave radiation and nuclear fallout and chemtrail residue and all this junk that wasn't there in the Essene period, which is what that book is about. And so if you just did what they did exactly, which is basically go on a long water fast until you're better, I think a lot of people would probably die from that now, because we're so much more toxic. And what happens when you fast is the body starts to heal itself, and it does that by, it knows, the body is conscious. We'll get into this more later. But the body doesn't just have intelligence in it. It's a conscious being. And even more important than that, so is the mind. This is what the old yogis, I think, missed. They tried to overcome the negative thoughts of the mind by force, and that does not work in the long run. So the body is very super intelligent. It knows where it has stored all of the concentrated residues of all the garbage that we've put in it, making mistakes in what we ate, breathing in bad stuff sometimes on purpose, thinking it was really cool or fun, like smoking cigarettes or smoking marijuana or smoking anything is not brilliant for your lungs, because they're designed for fresh air. But, and I'm not saying marijuana is useless, because juicing it gets to the essence of it, and there are benefits that are there. But I've seen things done by marijuana to people's minds that I really wouldn't recommend to people. Your mental state in your brain chemistry is really delicate, and whether it's a chemical or a plant or whatever that fools around with that, you have to be very, very careful with it. I have been observing that since the mid-'60s when I was in the universities as a student, and everybody was on marijuana at that point, and quite a few using LSD. And the LSD ones actually were trying to get some kind of spiritual insight from it, and some of them did, but in the long run, that approach has some negative consequences. And use of marijuana, even though it makes you feel like everything's really cool and relaxed, and it allows you to not be aware of what was bothering you before you started ingesting it, it doesn't work toward clarity of consciousness. It's the opposite. And so some people that have a tendency toward violence have benefited from marijuana because it makes you so zoned out, you forget about being violent in a lot of cases. And people who are in pain, cancer patients and people like that, if they don't know how to cure it because we haven't been allowed the real health information, then they can benefit sometimes from the zoning out effect of marijuana, so they don't even care about their pain anymore. That, I think, is where the pain, fighting quality of it comes from. So I'm not telling anybody not to do that. I think that people should be able to do whatever they want with their own bodies. That does not apply, by the way. If you're carrying a child, that's not your body. But it's just your body as far as being sick or dealing with pain or anything like that. I think government intruding on that is not something that should be happening. So anyway, I saw all these people around me using marijuana and some of them using LSD, and I didn't realize, until later what was going on with that, but I got a chance to watch them over long periods. And mainly I was focused on my own health problems and getting those fixed, and I was really interested in aging. What's aging, Is it necessary? Is it real? Is it reversible? Is it avoidable? And I was getting ideas about work that I wanted to do during this lifetime, and I needed high energy. I didn't need to be, degenerating and getting diseases and stuff like that. So I was really interested in how that could be avoided, and I was fortunate to get that done. I did learn from a lot of really brilliant people and from non-physical sources, and all of you have access to exactly the same thing. So it's not that anybody's more special than anybody else. So we've all got these miraculous or what would look like miraculous potential. And that's what this show's about, is about you. It's nothing about me at all, because I'm just one of billions of people out there who happen to be talking to you and telling you, just kind of jarring you a little bit, and hopefully bringing up some ideas that would make you think in a little bit different way and come across things that you used to know and you forgot for a while. But I didn't plan to do the radio show. I planned to stay very quiet, just maybe a little bit of private health consulting for people that were in serious situations or wanting to really upgrade their energy or something like that. But other than that, my preference was to never be known to anybody in the world, and to just be under the radar and continue my work. And I prefer seclusion, anonymity, nature, harmony, peace, things like that. I don't really, at this point, and even then to some degree, well, no, it's evolved over time, but at this point I don't have any desire for interaction with the human world at all personally. But I was asked, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, to start a radio program about health by somebody who ran and owned a radio network, and they were aware that I was carrying around some unusual experience and information, and I felt like it would be unethical to say no. And that turned into Lost Arts Radio, which probably never would have happened or could have happened if I hadn't found Doug, which was another amazing thing to me. And we've worked together harmoniously since the beginning, and it's been amazing, because I knew I couldn't do the engineering part and be the host, and I needed somebody to help, and I ran an ad in our friend Russ Tanner's Facebook group, which at that time was about 60,000 people, And I thought, I'd have to spend the next several months interviewing people for that work, and none of them would be appropriate, and I'd just waste the whole time. And nobody responded except Doug. It was totally amazing, and to me, one of many signs that this show was supposed to happen, even though, like I told you a few minutes ago, I can't tell if it, most of the time, coherent to anybody or talking about anything that any of you guys care about it unless you let me know. So we originally just had the guest show, and another sign that it was supposed to happen, we got these world-class guests, starting with Marcus Rothkranz, who I think is this incredible person. And even before we had almost any listeners, this was happening. So even I was able to tell, well, yeah, maybe we are supposed to be doing this stuff. And where it's going to go, if anywhere, I don't know. But even if it only reaches you or whoever is supposed to get something from it, that could be, the reason for the whole thing. So all this stuff we've gone through to put it together and keep it going, and put in a massive amount of work every week, running after guests and arranging the talk show part of it, which is this one on Saturday, the guests being on Sunday. That might all just be so that we could talk to you, even if there's nobody else listening. If it gets to you and you make some use out of it, then that might be the whole thing. So I said, all right, we're supposed to do this thing, and I thought we'd be talking about the physical application of the laws of nature that I had to find out about to get rid of my health issues. And, organic live food, juice, fasting, exercise, sleep, sunlight, stuff like that. And we do talk about those things because they are critically important. You can't really, be in the condition that you're supposed to be with your physical body and your brain and everything without learning and applying those things. But it quickly moved into deeper areas of the laws of nature and consciousness and clarity on what's going on in the world around us, not to feel bad about it, because I don't know, I'm sure you've noticed there's a horror movie happening in the world outside. Not to feel bad about it or to have any fear or anger or frustration or anything, but just for strategic awareness of how it might be good to, do things in your life. And sometimes you have to make a decision about where you're going to be or how you're going to educate your kids or what you're going to do for your work or something like that. And if you're totally oblivious to what's going on in the outside world, that can have unpleasant consequences. So the last 20 years of the work that I did, roughly, that included a really in-depth investigation into the economic and political power structure that has been running America and most of the world for quite a long time. And so I know what they're doing to us. I connected a lot of the dots, not all of them, but a lot. And I know what they plan to do to us in the coming immediate future and longer term. And so my ulterior motives are share the information that maybe you could use to reduce some of the avoidable human suffering, and also on a bigger scale to avert and not have the planned future that the global rulers are planning to give to us. And in case you are not clear on that, with all the incredible complexity, the bottom line is total sacrificial destruction of the biosphere, including us. That's their plan, okay? So if you just know that about the plan, you got the basic idea. And before that, of course, they want to implement what's in Agenda 21 and all those things for complete surveillance and enslavement of the population of the whole world, merging it into one government if they can, making believe that's for peace, right? Yeah, it's total peace because they'll control everybody's life. And just like Muhammad wanted peace through Islam because nobody would have any other belief system, they'd all be dead. So it's not exactly the kind of peace that you would want if you're somewhat awake. And being aware of what's going on in the outside world, we get into what's blocking the harmony that's normal to this place and to where we came from and to who we are. And what's blocking health. Because, see, there's one thing that I found out is there's this life current, and words don't really describe what it is. So I'm sorry if it's not a good description, but it's what keeps us able to live in these bodies. If that current weren't flowing into us, it's been called prana or chi or light, things like that. Again, the words don't matter, but it's conscious and alive. It's not just a thing. And in fact, almost nothing is just a thing when you find out about it. It gets really interesting. But this harmonious energy that's flowing through us all the time is always working on every level in unbelievable complexity to harmonize everything in our bodies and our lives. So if there's things that are happening that are not in harmony, there's always a reason. And in the beginning, you see, well, there's all these other people doing bad things, and there's circumstances that come up by bad luck and all that. None of that is true, even though it's true on a superficial level. What's underneath it is what we're putting out. Because if we have harmony flowing through us and we've got enough consciousness to maintain that and direct it, experiences that get brought to us that seem to come through other people or circumstances all change. And it's a clue to our actual power to help things get better on the planet as well. But you have to start totally with your own self. So now the research that I'm doing continues all the time, 24 hours a day, every day. And I'm just here sharing it with you in case any of it is of any interest or value to you. I've thought of stopping this show many times, and I always get somebody saying, well, it's really helping me. And like I said, even if it's one person, it's worth whatever we're putting into it. So, but besides just talking about what's wrong with the world, which there's a lot of shows doing that now, and they're important because it makes us aware. But I also like to highlight the work of courageous and inspirational people. And this week, for example, which happens to be tomorrow, the regular guest show, which is on Sundays, 6 o'clock Pacific, 9 o'clock Eastern, U.S. time. We've got a guy named Ryan Slaybaugh who I wanted to have on, and he's the general manager and editor of a newspaper that has become a magazine called Acres USA, about large-scale organic or natural farming. And I got interested in that magazine in the 70s. I met the original founder of it, named Charles Walters Sr. in Kansas City when I was going across the country. And we had a long talk a couple of times. He was this brilliant, cynical guy, saying, well, because I was telling him, wow, you got to get this out to everybody. It was fairly new to me, a lot of it at that point. And he said, well, yeah, but most of the American public they're just completely, it was before the idea of zombies became popular, but that was a general idea. He said none of them have any clue what's going on, who they are, where they live, anything. And it wasn't because he didn't like them, people in the country. It was because he was a little bit discouraged, but he was determined to help. And that newspaper evolved into a magazine. It's still called Acres USA. It's got a website. There were no websites when I met Charles, but now there are, and it's a website called acresusa.com. I would recommend anybody who's interested in going there and looking at their educational materials. It's all about large-scale commercial farming, turning that into natural organic farming, which I think is essential. It's not just a good idea. It's going to be connected to whether the planet survives. So I thought, wow, why don't we try to get the editor and the general manager on and talk to him? And he said, okay. And he's going to be on tomorrow's show. I think it's going to be great. So also a question came up this week on another subject, but they're all connected, of course. If, let's say you wanted to follow the laws of nature, and like they talk about in the Essene Gospel, and like we've talked about it, updating, and many health teachers talk about now live organic food. How do you change over? What do you eat for meals and things like that to regain and maintain your highest state of health and clarity of mind and all that energy. So I'm going to respond to that question, but first of all, I want to, for the benefit of everybody who may listen to this later and all the monitors who are really interested in what we're putting out on this show, we're not talking about medical information. If you want to have your diseases diagnosed or get drugs or have your organs cut out or get radiation or chemotherapy or shock treatment or, any of the modern cutting-edge science techniques that are available from the healthcare industry, please go do that, okay? We don't do that here. We just talk, and I have to make a really good disclaimer because real health information is violently suppressed in this country and much of the world now. And that's a big, important story, actually. But so I'll just say that by listening to this show, you agree never to do anything that I'm suggesting unless you are already doing it, for your own reasons, and that this is just for informational or entertainment or whatever you want to say purposes. And it's totally not about anything medical, okay? So please go to your doctor immediately. Support the $3 trillion a year healthcare system in this country that is killing at least 1 million people and is doing a really amazing job. They are doing some wonderful emergency medicine, trauma care, and things like that. But as far as health goes, it's mass murder. And, I'm not saying that's bad. It's just what they're doing. So please go and add to their income from that. Well, here on this show, we're just talking about some ideas. So back to the question and looking at meals. The thing about meals, if you wanted to start coming into harmony with laws of nature, is that meals and eating, these are totally individual issues. And as soon as you make one diet that everybody has to follow or one schedule of meals or, you try to have some really successful book about the grapefruit and rhubarb diet that's a super breakthrough and solves all problems and stuff. It sounds interesting, but from what I could tell, maybe there's some great diet that fixes everything, but what I found is that there's no way around having to get in touch with the consciousness of your body and the consciousness of your mind, both of which are self-aware beings. I know that sounds completely ridiculous, but I just have to tell you the truth at this point. They are. And if you make friends with them, amazing, seemingly magical things result. So when your body has been trying to communicate with you since before you were born, and actually before we're born, we're kind of tuned in and listening to it mostly. But after we get born and we get inundated by this amazing play of sense images that we call the real world, we get totally out of touch, most of us, with the physical body and with the mind, and we think that's us. And as soon as you think it's you, you're caught. And you're subject to all kinds of addictions, and it's really hard to get out as long as you think that that's you. And I know that some people have had great success with natural drugs like ayahuasca and other things like that, breaking addictions overnight. But what I'm telling you is you still have to do the work. You still have to do the adjusting of your perspective and start to get some kind of awareness of who you are. Otherwise, no success is long-term without that. So, you can figure out meals, but the way you figure them out is by getting back in touch with your body. And if your body's not hungry, then the brilliant response to that is you don't eat. Because there's a cycle that goes on with there are a lot of cycles actually that go on in your body and all around you in nature, but one of them is bringing in nutrition, which the body hopes is actual nutrition, not the garbage we feed it all the time. And the other is self-healing. Mostly that goes on at night while you sleep. Part of it because you're supposed to be really, really relaxed while you sleep, which is a prerequisite for self-healing. It's like what I guess Dr. Gonzalez and other people called the dominant period of the parasympathetic nervous system that rebuilds and repairs and is completely relaxed. And that's part of the cycle. And the other part is the sympathetic, that when you're actually actively doing things, it's not just fight or flight. It's all these kinds of work that the body's doing all day. So if the body gets behind on getting rid of junk and house cleaning, and almost everybody now is so far behind in that, I mean, decades, that the residue of toxic junk that's built up, undigested food and all this garbage in your body forms the basis of disease. And it's not like we're taught, that there are these diseases that just at random come and get you because of some evil germ. It's because we're making a petri dish, a culturing environment in our body, in our cells, for the kind of microorganisms that are required to break down that garbage. And when they sense it and move into you and start doing their job, some of the byproducts make more problems because they can be corrosive and harmful. But the problem is not the microorganisms, it's the environment that we created that attracted them. And if you don't do that, you can walk right through them and they don't bother you. It's hard for people to grasp that now because we've been taught the usual understanding of the germ theory thing. So I'm suggesting, rather than giving you a meal plan or saying you have to eat this particular food at this time, reconnecting with the amazing consciousness that you've got in your mind and your body. And then the addictions are seen as the addictions of the mind and the body, not you. If you get that, if you really get that, you can get rid of any of them. And you can do things to take care of yourself without the stress of severe willpower. That's no longer needed. It's all a matter of realizing that the mind is a separate entity and the body is a separate entity. Both of them are conscious. The mind has they both have the consciousness of children, as far as I've been able to see, maybe 2 years old or something, and they have total trust of you, and they've been wanting direction from you all your life. I'm sorry if this sounds weird. This is just, there's lots of other radio shows that are normal that you can listen to, okay? But if anybody can benefit from this, I'm sharing an unusual perspective with you, that this is the way to make them your allies and friends and harmonize the situation. So the mind is playing programs all the time, and those run around in our consciousness as thoughts and emotions. And we think by long habit that that's us. No, that's not us. Those are programs. So if you can see that, and you don't try to change them by force, which does not work and has bad results, you relate to the mind and the body as little kids. And the body you have to take care of like a 2-year-old that you're babysitting, or that's your actual child. So when you're taking care of your young child, how much willpower does it take you to not feed them poison? Not very much, right? If you're some way normal person, you automatically want to only give them things that are really good for them. So the way the body is biologically designed, that's organic, live, raw, fresh food. And that's it. I mean, that's what it's designed to eat and drink. And it's designed to drink good water, not, these fancy drinks and protein shakes and all that kind of stuff that are made in a lab. The body does not have those things in the database of what it recognizes. So it sees them as foreign, and the long-term results of that are not as good. So one of the experiments that I'm doing right now is, since a lot of people think if you're on a raw food vegetarian diet, even though I add raw milk to it, so I'm not vegan, and I don't recommend veganism over a long period, except for cleansing. I want to show whether it's possible to build a lot of solid muscle mass on that diet, which most people would say no, because all of the serious bodybuilders and strength athletes and everybody men and women, have come down to eating essentially chicken, fish, steamed broccoli, brown rice, sweet potatoes, a few other things, everything cooked, and some fruit, maybe for a few snacks, but that's their diet. And they get tremendous muscle development, but they also are eating an almost all cooked food diet, and the body's not biologically adapted to eat meat. It works for quite a while. You can do it for decades. But in the long run, the microorganisms that you attract into your gut by eating meat are not ones that you want there. So rather than just having this, philosophy that, oh, that's not good, you can do it this other way, I have to test everything I tell you guys. I can't just talk about it. I can't have just read about it. I have to have done it or be doing it. So doing this radio show puts a huge obligation on me. That may have been one subconscious reason I didn't want to do it, but it's really good. It's beneficial for me because I'm listening to what I'm telling you and saying, wow, I actually have to do that. And I am doing it. So that experiment right now is going on. I'm doing much, much harder exercise in the gym on much less food. It's all light, organic, raw food, raw vegan food plus raw milk. And those are the things I've found to be essential, and live food forms of the nutrients that we need. I haven't found really anything else that's needed or appropriate for the body. And I'm not saying that you have to give up all your other habits right now unless you want to. But if you're in fairly good shape, you can move at your own pace and gradually, figure out where you are on the spectrum of eating and other things in your life, exercise, how good your sleep is and stuff like that. And then start upgrading it at the pace you're comfortable with, because it has a huge psychological component. If you try to do it faster than you're comfortable with, a lot of times you'll have a relapse. And people go to these wonderful retreats, like there's a great one in Southern California where they're all raw vegan, and people with cancer go there and stuff, and they get good results. And then they go back to their old diet, and they get their diseases back a lot of times. And I think it's because sometimes the root cause is not, the person's not willing to deal with that. And they also don't know that with respect to any kind of distressing emotion or addiction, which is one of those, this sounds weird, I'm sorry, but it's the truth as far as I can see right now. That's a program. It's not you. And if you're willing to step beyond it and see it as a program that your mind is playing, and that mind is a little kid that wants your attention, and you're going to have to deal with it if you want to fix that situation, you have a way to cut through what could be, in my mind, lifetimes of work that would not ever get through the complexity. It's like, you might take 1,000 years of psychoanalysis to try to even begin to understand it. But if you make friends with the mind and see it as a separate little kid, all gone. You're cutting right through to the bottom, to the base. And what you can accomplish that is quite amazing. So anyway, as I was saying, most people can move, upgrading their life, starting to get better exercise, starting to get better sleep at more appropriate hours for the body, start to get more toward raw food and not anything that's not organic. That's just not a good idea. And dumping the processed foods that have come in boxes and cans, and the frozen things that have paragraphs of ingredients that many of which you can't recognize. Those are not food. And if you put those things in your body, it's like calling something medicine when it's really a toxic chemical. You need to see what it really is. The name of it doesn't matter. It's what it really is. But people who are in serious situations, according to all the good health teachers, have to jump all the way to the other end of the spectrum, and they usually need assistance from somebody who's really experienced. And they can do, juice fasting, which is an easier way than water fasting for most people, and other things to get rid of the foundation quickly of their disease. And if they do that, depending on how much damage has already been done by them and by the medical system, they can reverse a lot of it, and they tend to start getting younger. I mean, it's really interesting. And I'm telling you that because I did it, and I'm within a couple of years of being 70 years old, and I feel about 30 right now because this stuff is real and it actually works. So we're not just talking about a theory at all. And I'm still making sure that I work on it basically around the clock now. That's what my function is. And I'm in the process of trying to see where I might be valuable as a conduit of that kind of experience and information. And maybe the school will get built, if the money comes up. And that, if you want to see a glimpse of what that's like, go to Lost Arts Research Institute.org, and some of it's described there, so you might find that interesting. I have some more things to say, but I just want to remind you, if you want to call in before we stop the show tonight, the number is 657-383-1002. Not really ready for that, but you can call in and listen until we have time to talk to you, and that gets you a place in line. But I want to tell you, we've had a lot on the shows lately about microwave radiation, one of the many hazards that are there, not by chance, but on purpose, by the people who are in charge of the power structure. The 5G system is being rolled out in the U.S. and actually other places too. Places in Europe, or what used to be Europe, and other parts of the world. And the plans are to cover the whole planet with 5G transmitters. And the reason, there's different motives. In the industry itself, which is called the telecom industry, the motive is profit, and they're all excited because they can make so many hundreds of billions of dollars for the industry by having everybody constantly living through these 5G systems, not just on your cell phone or your computer, but the idea, they think it's all really exciting that every item on Earth is going to have a chip in it and can be tracked and communicated with and all that. They don't realize it's part of Agenda 21, and this is really bad for them personally. They're all excited about it, and that's the motivation of the telecom industry, which now thinks they just hit it big because government, for some unknown reason, is going to help them have a monopolistic business of every bit of the real estate on the whole planet. But at the top level, the reason government's doing that is that they know that, their whole thing is to try to prevent us from becoming conscious. Because if we reach the deeper levels of our own consciousness, the whole game of the whole destroying the earth thing that's going on right now, that's over. Because we'll tell you more about why in the, a little bit later, but they know that. And so they figure if they can generate harmful frequencies of radiation all over the earth and you cannot move away from them, they're everywhere, which are things that are planned to come after that, then people's brains can be so mixed up, they're never going to have a chance to become self-aware. That's what it really is about. Your whole body communicates cell, probably atom to atom and even finer than that, with this very delicate electrical system that is in tune with the earth. And 5G is not in tune with that at all. It's like this really coarse, intrusive frequency that messes up everything, not just for humans, but for animals and plants and trees and things like that. So it fits right into the plan that all of normal nature has to be replaced and exterminated. And I actually recently, I don't usually do this, but I went to this city council meeting where they were talking about the coming 5G system that's going to be everywhere. And they just, it was a weird experience because there was almost no consciousness in these people, and they all just totally assumed that if there's a law that means you have to be killed, you just have to follow the law. And I totally agree that it's important to have a country of laws that is supposed to protect you against having all your stuff stolen and you getting run over and killed in a lot of different ways. But when the laws become criminal, which is what they've done in the U.S. and most places now, then we got kind of a serious situation. And our problems on the Earth now are not technical problems. The free and clean energy sources have long been available for at least 100 years. They could be rolled out fairly quickly. Cars driving on water and not gasoline have already been demonstrated and proven. It's not technical problems. It's that we have malevolent individuals in positions of power, and the corruption has spread all the way down to the local governments in a lot of cases. And these people are being controlled by brainwashing and sometimes by bribes and blackmail. And we have a completely corrupt media that has no obligation to tell the truth whatsoever. They belong, in the U.S., for example, they belong to about 4 global corporations, and they are the mouthpiece to engineer social beliefs and value systems and stuff like that. That's what it's about. It's not a news system. And the government itself has actually become not just a partner of the corporations, it's literally, legally, a web of corporations too. And the global rulers are controlling all these governments through the banking system that's consolidated through the Bank of International Settlements at the top of all these central banks. And the whole plan is coordinated total destruction. And the people at the very top believe that they're going to merge into cyberspace and become immortal, and this wonderful sacrifice they're doing, and we are the sacrificial animal in this case, by the way, and so is the rest of the biosphere. When they do the sacrifice correctly, their God that they're doing this for, which is the dark energy, that's going to accept the sacrifice, and they're going to become immortal. It's going to be really great. But, as I said before, they're really clever in a lot of ways. They're not too smart in this way, because when you do bad things to other people, you don't escape the effect of that. And they don't get that. They think that they're in some kind of a privileged system above the spiritual law, which that really doesn't work. So millions of people are being mind controlled, and I think the 5G system is part of that. And the corporate and government leaders who are blackmailed and bribed are going along with it, and then the lower level workers are totally fooled into thinking that it's good. Agriculture believes that chemical fertilizers and pesticides are the way to feed the world. But the guy that invented the first real chemical fertilizers, he was a German chemist named Justus von Liebig. Before he died, he said, "Oh, sorry about the chemical fertilizer thing. That was a big mistake." And he realized it would produce a world of, inferior crops that would be subject to disease. But the agricultural industry said, this is fantastic, because the plants that we grow with chemical fertilizers all get eaten up by bugs and disease unless we poison them. So we can, convince the gullible population that poisons save the world and feed everybody. And most people actually believe that is necessary now, especially most farmers. But it's completely not true. And so chemical fertilizers are a great menace to the planet. And I know it'd be called anti-science by all the big ag people, but it's still true. And one of the reasons that they have to get rid of and destroy Donald Trump right now as a non-controlled president, the first one since John Kennedy probably, is that if he ever finds out that chemical fertilizers are destroying the world, he'd probably turn right around and start to get rid of them, and a lot of other things too, and that's unacceptable. So, and the same thing is happening in agriculture is happening in the medical field. The medical field, the doctors and the workers and the scientists, they believe in the germ theory, and they quote Pasteur, who said that germs cause disease. But before he died, just like Justus von Liebig, he said, "Oh, sorry about the germ theory thing. That was a big mistake." And yeah, some of you realize I'm paraphrasing Ghostbusters here, but I'd like to do that. So Pasteur said in French, he said, "The germ is nothing, the terrain is everything." And it didn't mean that the germs don't exist. There's microorganisms, and you can see them in a microscope. Your body is 90% microorganisms and 10% human cells. So trying to get healthy by killing all the microorganisms is not brilliant. It's about as brilliant as spraying poison on your food and then eating it. Okay, that's not a good idea. And we're supposed to not notice any connection between that stuff and the fact that massive diseases are rampant all over the place in America and much of the world. And they're just from mistakes that we've been trained to make by the people in charge, mistakes in lifestyle. And then the environmental people believe in that man-made climate change is going to kill everybody, and they don't know that it's mostly coming from chemtrails, and that the pollution that's coming from using, burning petroleum to drive cars and stuff hasn't been necessary for more than 100 years. So it's not the fault of the population for burning gasoline at all. That's what we've been given to use. And there are magnetic and other finer energy systems. Water has been demonstrated to work just fine if you break it down into hydrogen and oxygen and then use the hydrogen part as fuel, and it puts out water vapor as the exhaust. That was demonstrated all over the country I think it might have been in the 80s, and government agents killed that guy. They poisoned him. This is the problem. It's not that people are so stupid they're using gasoline. It has nothing to do with that. It's that the government is assassinating the inventors of clean energy, which have been around for a long time. So I know of many of them that are too terrified to say anything about what they've got. And the reverse engineered higher technologies, which are also amazing and probably even stronger, those are being hidden by government. Dr. Stephen Greer is trying to get those exposed. And Donald Trump has mentioned that he wants to do that, actually, which is another reason that he's targeted for destruction. So I guess the thing is that most of the environmental people are sincere, but they don't realize, most of them, that they're playing right into the hands of the Agenda 21 people who want to use the desire to save the earth from global warming or oil or whatever they're saving it from, to give up the rights and the freedoms that we still have left. So the question is, what's the solution? Because just saying that, all these things are not going to work, that's not good enough. It's not worth the time for a radio show to say that. You might as well be watching a movie that you like or something. So it's only worth it if you can get towards a solution. And I don't think that overcoming the negative forces that are trying to kill everybody by force is the answer. I don't think that's going to work. That's the approach they want us to take, because they have the weapons and many, many times overkill to wipe all of us out. And the reason that we're not all dead now, even though they want us all that way, is that they have certain rules in their belief system that they have to follow. And if they kill us all now, they don't qualify for what they want. But if we attack them and try to get rid of them by force, then I think the rules allow them to wipe us all out at once. It's not like I want to test that and see if it's true. But I think that this time, the same courage and spirit of 1776 is needed, but it has to be dealing with yourself, because that's the hidden power point that is so much more effective and more powerful than any amount of force or weapons or anything like that. So that really, if you want to know, is the ulterior motive for talking about health, because it's the first step. If you get your health issues out of the way as much as you can, we've all had damage done to our bodies by our own mistakes and by doctors and food and stuff before. But to the extent that we still can, to get your health issues at least a lot better and out of the way as much as possible, that gives you kind of a natural calmness. And that is the foundation on which to begin reacquiring self-awareness and consciousness. And at that point, automatically we get back forgotten normal abilities, which we would consider miraculous right now, but they're normal. And I think we have the ability, using those, to actually heal the atmosphere of the earth, which is the opposite of what the power structure is doing. They're wanting to fill the atmosphere with horrible thought images and frequencies that are destructive and deadly and cause sickness and diseases and epidemics and all this kind of stuff. I think that we have the ability to program the atmosphere of this planet in the opposite direction. And that if we get back in touch with that, we are so much stronger than any of these negative guys can imagine. We might even be able to reach the people that are in charge of, destruction right now, the rulers and the higher level people in the power structure. Instead of seeing them as enemies and wanting to hurt or kill them, which is just giving into the same energy that they're doing, why don't we get strong enough to heal them and jar them awake? I really think we could do that. It's not just a rhetorical question. So really, if you look at what this show is supposed to be about, is exposing the biggest taboo that I've ever seen, and that is who you actually are, where you came from, what you're connected to. And I mean, we can talk about God and all this stuff, but I'm talking about really experiencing it firsthand. And if it's real, there's no reason you can't do that. So the whole star of not only this show, but the star of the action movie, the superhero in the action movie that we call real life that's happening right now, is you. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever, or even about our guests. It's exclusively about you. And so, like they said in Mission Impossible, if you choose to accept this mission, you have work to do. Because disease and aging, so-called aging, mental fog and all this stuff, low energy, these are reversible. It's not about, I'm not talking about taking drugs, because what is that? That's toxic chemicals that have been tested in a lab, and maybe one of the results on these poor animals that they test them on is really atrocity, but maybe one of the results that happened to the animals was getting rid of some symptom, right? When the other results on those animals are they die and their liver is destroyed and they go blind and all their hair falls out and stuff. But those are okay because those are called side effects, right? The big, large print effect is that it makes you unaware that you have a headache or something like that. I mean, it's maliciously insane. And I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about it's really reversible. And the energy that's keeping you alive right now is so powerful. And it's holding the whole universe and much more than that together. We might as well let it do its work and learn how we're blocking it and stop that. So if we do that in our own life, it doesn't mean trying to convince anybody else to do anything. That's a diversion. If you do it yourself and you become that, those people who are able to perceive it are going to be so affected by you, you won't even have to say anything. And if you do say something, the energy that's hidden in your words is going to be really powerful. It's actually quite exciting. And the energy that's waiting there that belongs to you and nobody else is beyond any kind of description. It's beyond a drug high. It's irresistible and it belongs to you. So all I'm doing is just suggesting the idea that you might want to accept your role and that you're desperately needed by the whole world and all of creation. And I don't know what else to say. Either you guys are going to think that I'm completely insane and ridiculous and this, is just irrelevant stuff, or maybe if you're supposed to hear it, it's going to mean something to you and you're going to start taking your time seriously and not just blowing away day after day after day with things that don't change your basic consciousness level or situation. So from here, I don't know if anybody hears me or cares about this or anything. You can let me know. But I'm grateful to you for giving me a reason to be here, because when I talk about this stuff, like I said before, I actually have to do it. I can't I can't afford to just be talking in some kind of hypocritical way. If what I'm saying is true, I have to be doing it, using it, just like I'm suggesting that you can, and that you're going to affect people even if you never say anything. Just by what you become, they're going to change. It's quite interesting stuff. So, anyway, that's all I had to say for tonight. So, if you feel like calling other than people who are on hold right now, you still can, and that is 657-383-1002. And I wanted to tell you also, if you're listening in some other time zone and it's too inconvenient or you're too busy or something, and you listen to the archives, which most of our listeners actually do, if you want to feel more involved and you want us to address some of the things that you're dealing with, send me an email. If you can't be on the live show, then just tell me what you're thinking about or what you're going through by email, which is richard@lostartsradio.com, and I will answer it or ask you questions or comment on it on the live show on Saturdays. And that way you can be directly involved, even though it's not convenient for you to be here at exactly the time that the live show is on. And it would be fun to hear from you. I appreciate those of you that are already writing and giving me your feedback on what you're doing along these lines. Health issues and consciousness issues, both of which are completely tied together. And let me know what you think. So, in the meantime, before we totally disappear tonight, let's talk to Dee in California. Hi, Dee. How are you doing? Are you there?
Oh, sorry. I was muted on my phone. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. I wanted to let you know that a lot of people who have communicated with me consider you a major star of the show, and they're really interested in the things that you share. So,
oh, wow. Thank you.
Yeah. So you have a lot of friends that are listening to.
Probably an answer to my request that I be able to help people more, because I'm getting to the point where I really want to, help other people. And I'm like you, where I don't really want to, I've always wanted to be a hermit or do my own garden or whatever, but I went on a walk yesterday. It ended up all day long running into people after people after people and talking to them. So
wow. So this is almost in response exactly to what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that's what's been happening to me lately. It's very different. I mean, it's a flood. It's a flood of people and their problems, and I thought it would be really a bummer to do that, to go around hearing everybody's problems. But what happened was it made me realize how fortunate I am, and I just feel so much for them that it's changing me to appreciate not just what I have, but that I always had a negative view of my worldview.
Yeah.
And when I hear all the suffering and a lot of other negative worldviews, it makes me want to just have a positive one for them.
Yeah, exactly, because they're affected by exactly what you decide to feel.
Well, I can't help but feel so much compassion that it automatically makes me want to give them encouragement. And when I do say encouraging things, then I automatically feel that it's somehow helping them, just to say something nice.
Yeah, it's helping both of you at the same time.
Right.
It's really neat. And it's true that there's all these hellish things happening in the world right now, but sometimes I think of it like a dark frame around a really beautiful picture. And it gives contrast to the main focus, which is the kind of stuff you're talking about right now.
Yeah. Well, it's changing my attitude. I thought it would be a downer, but it's not. It's an upper to at least let them talk about their problems to somebody, because a lot of these people don't have people that they can really tell their problems to.
That's true. Yeah, really almost nobody. Most people feel really isolated from what I've seen.
Well, yeah, I have too. I've been isolated a lot in my experience.
Yeah. It's like the only kind of conversations that go on are the really superficial ones, and some of the time people can be appearing to be okay in those, and then everything just falls apart because they never got any kind of interaction that they wanted.
Yeah,
you're giving them that.
These people that I've been talking to are really, really either super stressed out or dying of cancer, or, has osteoporosis to the point where they can't even walk. I mean, just horrible, horrible problems.
Yes, I know. It's like we're living in some kind of a big, Nazi experimental medical thing like they had in World War II. And yet it's being done by the acceptable system is what's doing it.
I was wondering if a person has cancer to the point where they're only bones with skin wrapped around it, do you feel that it's possible for them to make a comeback if they've been on a lot of drugs?
Yeah, I still think it can be. I wouldn't have that kind of a person fast, though. And,
right.
Again, we have to say these are just ideas that everybody's agreeing never to try anything that I'm suggesting. It's just for entertainment purposes only. But what I've run into in my own experience with that is that sometimes, and also talked about this in Florida too, that what he uses a lot for those people is fruit, fresh, ripe fruit, and has gotten really great results with that, and has actually regenerated people from almost nothing. In fact, he's talked about experiences with people who are all twisted in knots from Lou Gehrig's disease and all kinds of paralytic conditions and stuff like that, and some of them have completely recovered as well. So wow. Yeah, it's possible. If they still have work to do in this particular body and they're not done, and they get a hold of things that are in tune with nature, they can get better. That's my experience anyway.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah, it's totally encouraging. A lot of them can't get away from the treatments that are killing them, and that's one of their main problems. And
right.
they're being given terrible food and drugs and all kinds of stuff.
If they don't give up the drug, it's probably not as hopeful, I would guess.
Yeah, because, it's kind of common sense. If you keep eating poison, it's really hard for your body to get healthy doing that. Even if you call the poison medicine, it's still poison.
Okay.
We're not supposed to have that kind of clarity, but that's true.
Right. Well, I've been growing lettuces and some greens of different sorts,
mm-hmm.
and they're finally ready to eat. And so I've been eating them like a salad every day for the last few days.
Neat. That's great.
And I did notice a difference in my energy level.
Yeah, that kind of food is normal. It hasn't been in a truck for a week getting to the store and stuff like that. Coming right out of the soil is really the best. That's one reason I wanted to talk to this guest tomorrow from Acres USA, is because I think we really need to have millions of new organic farms everywhere.
Right. But it's hard to do it by yourself.
Yeah, I know. That's why people are supposed to cooperate, and they have this thing called division of labor, which is when the idea that a village or a town or a group of houses gets together and they actually help each other, to take care of growing the food and educating the kids and all that stuff, and it's all done locally. It's a nice model. It could still work.
it's hard, though, because people are so brainwashed, like what you were saying, that they don't want to give up those fears, and so it makes it really difficult to come together.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know what the outcome's going to be, if the world is still going to be healed or if it's going to fall apart the rest of the way. I just know that it feels better to be giving out all this healing energy that you can, no matter what happens, whether it's going to be possible or not. Because if it isn't, we just start again in another environment. You know, it's not like everything's lost. So we're going to be okay. And we'll have the memory and the energy imprint from every good thing that we put out during this time. And that's whether it works, in quotes, or not.
Oh, that's good.
It's like putting gold in the bank. Any good energy or uplifting inspiration that you give to other people or anything, it's like this big investment that you're making that is guaranteed to completely work. Whether the world blows up or not will not affect it.
Wow. Well, that's what actually the Bible says. It says to store up your treasures in heaven, and your treasures would not be
really
physical.
Agree with that. Yeah, it doesn't mean that the physical things are bad, but you know, they come and go, and you do the best with those that you can. But if you keep, like you said, making the investment on the non-physical level, that even has the effect of helping you physically. I mean, it brings in situations where if you're thinking, well, it would really be nice to have the gardening work easier or more widespread or some people cooperating, if you're just pouring out this good energy to the other people and to yourself, then if there's any way that gardening setup in the future can come together with more people helping, it will.
Right, and I guess I could just put a message out there to the ether and ask for help.
Yes, exactly right. I would definitely do that. And one of the guests that we're going to have on in I guess maybe a week from tomorrow, is a healer named Bill Bankston, Dr. William Bankston, really interesting guy. And what he's been experimenting with is very similar to the frequencies that we've been talking about tuning into. You know, like, for example, there's anything you can imagine has a frequency. So if you can imagine a situation where you have friends helping you in your gardening, that's got a frequency, and it's what Bill Bankston calls an image. And you put that image not of needing somebody to help you, but of having somebody to help you. In other words, the image or the frequency of the solution, not of the problem. And we were talking about tuning to that. He's talking about putting an image into the subconscious, but I think it's the same thing. And when you see, we've been using that system, but negatively, putting in the images or the frequency of all the problems. And then what happens is that the automatic manifesting faculty that we have says, all right, she wants this particular problem, and it keeps it going. But if we put instead the image or the frequency of the solution, the best you can imagine, and exactly how it feels, what it looks like, make it absolutely real, and then give it to your subconscious or to spirit, I think that starts trying to happen right away.
Wow. Well, that's putting looking at it half full to an application level.
Yeah, and it may be happening with you meeting all these people that you had this image that you wanted to be helping these people.
Well,
and it just was very quick in that particular case.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to help them, but my programming didn't think I was ready.
Yeah, but you must have had if Bill and the things that we're talking about are right, whether your mind told you you were ready or not, which is just a program, it's just thoughts, you may have had a picture and a feeling of what it would be like if you were ready.
Right. Well, I actually had inspirations come to me and write down in my notebook all the things I would do if I was doing a healing class, like an ongoing seminar.
Yeah, exactly. So you made that image really clear.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened.
Well, now I am kind of stumbling because I'm trying to figure out how to make a living at it, and that I don't know if it combines well. I don't know if I have to do something else, like a trade, to support what I want to do for helping.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that same question, because one of the things that I'd like to see done in the world is connect large amounts of money with really good things to do, instead of having the major money all connected with destruction. So there have to be ways that we can each do, like you're talking about, what is our highest potential that we would like to be doing and that we can be doing some good service. And there has to be money connected to that without ruining the energy of it. And the only thing I can think of connected to what you're saying is, why don't we have an image of that? Not how it's going to happen, because maybe it'll happen a different way, but the end result. In other words, and this is kind of giving away a little bit of what Bill Bengston will be talking about, but in other words, what it would feel like if you had solved that problem. So instead of our usual habit of saying, really dwelling on the problem, thinking that we got to find a solution, dwell on the solution and let the subconscious elements come together to make it work.
Oh, so feel what it feels like rather than what it looks like, because we don't know what it's going to look like, but we might.
No, we don't want to say it can only happen this way. That would not be good for us, because maybe that's not the best way. But we do know what we want the ultimate after picture to feel and look like, which is that it's great because we have now put plenty of money together with what we want to contribute to the world without corrupting the energy at all. And it's beautiful, and everything is flowing, and money is just flowing in more than what we need, and we're able to not even worry about the money and just focus on transmitting this really uplifting energy to the other people in whatever it is we're doing. And if we could make that image as real as the one that you had of talking to other people and helping them, then we could just watch how it happens.
I like that because I know I'm in a new paradigm, and I know I have an ability to do new imaging to go forward with my new paradigm.
Uh-huh.
And if I compare my own situation to what's going on with people that I know that are, people that are fire victims and all kinds of victims, that's not what I need to be comparing myself to.
No, if you hold that image, it might not have a good result. You want to be aware of all that intellectually, but give it no emotional counterpart. Because the emotion is what gives the thought power. So, and you're going to have to work in harmony with your mind as the little kid, using the psychology of the parent and letting it know, here's something I really would like your help to work on, and I'll let you do this with me if you think you might be able to. And that is that we want this ultimate image of, being able to be really helpful to these people and having the money issue already completely solved, and it's just out of the way. And if we make that image as real as the problem images have been, then something amazing could come out of that. Okay.
I want to try that. I want to try everything new. I don't want to fall back into the old stuff.
Yeah, we already tried that for a few million lifetimes, and it would be better to try this one now, I think.
I think so.
Something different, like you're saying.
Well, I had another question about processed food.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do just raw, fresh, organic.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw a really good sale, half off on this raw organic sesame butter, and it's in a jar. I mean, it's raw organic, not heated.
Yeah.
But it's already ground up and put in a jar.
Right.
So I don't know if that's processed food or not.
Yeah, well, it's processed, and see, what happens with seeds and grains, they're alive until you grind them up. And if you grind them up and then eat them soon, you get a lot of life energy through that. But if you grind them up and let them sit for months, they're not the same energy level. It doesn't mean they're necessarily bad, and you're going to have to communicate with your own body to see, what you need at any particular time. And I certainly went through periods when I was eating a lot of stuff like that. But what I feel from it now, just as an idea to look at, not necessarily agree with, but just think about, is that I don't see the life energy there very much. It's like, it's not necessarily polluted with anything. It might be really pure and organic, but the life energy is pretty much gone. So for me, it doesn't have a good result if I use any of that stuff. But it might be a big step up for somebody else that has been eating, things that are not that good and that have chemicals and stuff in them. Maybe for them, eating that sesame butter or whatever it is would be a step toward a much lighter eating program. So it depends where it is for you. And then if you're not sure, you can try a little bit of it and really tune into how it feels.
Well, for me, it's probably dead food.
Yeah, I would think so, based on what you're describing. Even if it's a good deal financially, it's probably not the energy that you want.
Right. So it's all about energy. I mean, everything's about the energy.
Yeah. Really, the true nutrient in food is life energy. It's not really vitamin B or whatever. Those are little tiny pieces of the bigger picture.
Okay.
Life energy is the main nutrient. It's the reason we eat. And we get some of it from sunlight and grounding and fresh air and stuff like that. But in these particular bodies and the condition we're in right now, we get a lot in food. And what we're told is absolute fact and known nutritional science is completely subject to error. So, the life energy is probably the top priority nutrient.
All right. Well, I'm having difficulty with animal food also.
Like what?
Well, I paid a crazy 3 times a normal amount and traveled to get organic food for my goats.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this special dairy pellet, and I had to order it from a place that had to go pick it up even farther away.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting.
I didn't have all the ingredients until I bought it, and I had to buy it because I ordered it.
Right.
And it has wheat. And as soon as my wheat in it.
Oh, okay.
And as soon as my goats ate it, they got diarrhea.
Oh, that's interesting. So it wasn't a very good goat food, was it?
No, it's supposed to be a dairy pellet.
Dairy goats or dairy cows?
Well, it was for any dairy.
Interesting. Well, yeah, it sounds like they didn't make a very good recipe, but the other thing that you're mentioning is it's getting harder and harder to find normal food for goats or humans. I mean, especially for animals. Since they've approved GMO alfalfa, what they're trying to do is cross-contaminate all the normal alfalfa so it won't exist, similar to what they've done with corn. And
I think they're doing a really good job of it.
They're doing a wonderful job, yeah. And so I'm really interested in what is it that we're supposed to do in response to that to avoid all of that happening. And the only thing I can really think of is that, we need places we really need places that are growing more and more organic food for animals and people. And then we have to figure out how to protect them. And I know, as you've talked about, Ken Rolla has designed some technologies to, kind of block some of the negative microwave energy and the chemtrail fallout and everything. But Ken agreed with me that ultimately that we are the transmitter that's stronger than cell towers or stronger than any technology that he or anybody else can invent. And one of the abilities we need to get back is to transmit protective fields around certain areas, and I think we can do that. But
well, I think so too. But if you have a newer refrigerator that has Wi-Fi, that
right.
it has a thing built into it that talks to your neighbor's smart meter.
Yeah.
That is going to not make it very easy to get to that goal.
That's the whole idea. This is a race, I think, between the power structure that wants us so tied down with surveillance and these negative frequencies that we don't have a chance to become conscious. And so we've just got to say, okay, well, now they're doing this, so what is still available for me to do? And maybe I haven't seen it yet, but I have to get more quiet and more in touch within myself, because there's no other goal. No other source of answers other than inside. And whatever they come up with that's negative, there's got to be some kind of countermeasure that we can get in touch with. So it's the only thing I know to do is, we've been a little slow doing it, so now we have to really put some attention on it and open up the limitless resources we have internally and see what they say to do.
I was thinking about trades, like what trade I could do to generate some kind of income if just helping people doesn't generate income.
Right.
So I was wondering about learning how to unhook the transistors on the circuit board in the appliances.
Oh, you mean as a service, because nobody's doing that?
Yeah.
I think that would be incredible. I've thought of where would you go? Like, for example, let's say you have to buy a new car and it's got like 20 different surveillance devices in it. How would you do something to fix that problem? Or a refrigerator, because they're making it harder to get the old appliances now too, for that reason.
Yeah,
almost nobody is doing that.
I can't have mine in my house anymore.
Have what in your house?
A refrigerator. I have to have it outside.
Oh, yeah, because it's transmitting, right? Like a smart meter or something.
I tried hooking it up again, and I just can't tolerate it.
Yeah. Well, that's good that you're aware of it. Most people aren't. But yeah, that would be incredibly valuable. You'd have to find some way to learn how to do that, though, I think, right?
Yeah, there's YouTube that if I had an electrician watch the YouTube and then try to figure out how to do it and then try to teach me how to do it.
Yeah, or maybe do it, if it's somebody you get along with, maybe do it in partnership with them or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know of an electrician offhand, but
the other thing is that depending on what evolves out of your helping people, you can eventually give them an option to donate to keep you able to do that if you want to.
Yeah, I thought about that, but I don't think it's going to, like my kids keep saying, well, just go have a vegetable stand out on the road. I don't think it's going to make enough to survive.
Yeah, that's hard. I think if you start actually helping people and sharing information with them that's going to help them get better, some people are actually willing to help you with money if you're doing that.
Okay, well, I can try it, and I want to go into it without my negative worldview. I want to go into it thinking really that, like what you said, feel and see that the solution already at play.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, remember the story of the ships offshore. I forget whether it was in America or one of the islands or something, and the Indians, the natives there, could not see the ships because a big ship like that was not in their worldview. They looked right through them. They were like invisible.
Oh, I know lots of people that do that with the chemtrail.
Yeah, I know. They're trying to be positive and everything. But these Indians, I don't know what country, I shouldn't say they were Indians. They were indigenous people of somewhere. And they were looking out at these ships of the people who were basically coming as invaders. And they couldn't see the ships. They asked the people how they got there. And they said, look, right out there's our ship. And they could not see it because they didn't believe in it. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that every single one of us has these magical potential possibilities that could open up, to deal with any situation, and we haven't believed in solutions up to now, only problems. So I'm just agreeing with what you're saying, that we can start really dwelling on solutions and let them happen however they want. And if I tried doing the classes or helping people, you never know. It could actually work. Yeah, it all depends on the energy interactions between you and those people, and you don't know who's sitting out there that you're about to get in touch with that might get really interested in what you're talking about, and you could even talk to them and say, I would like to just do this all the time, but I can't survive, so I need your ideas about how we could make this self-sustaining without ruining the spirit of it, and talk to some people about that. Yeah. I think I really have a feeling that that's what's going to be coming around the corner for me. It feels like it. It does. Which could be really great. It would be really enjoyable. Because if you can see people benefiting from, you're assisting them, that would be really satisfying, I would think. Well, when I was walking yesterday and talking to people, I don't feel like I gave them any solutions, but I listened to their problems and I gave them, a pat on the back and said, I think you're doing a great job of being a caretaker or hanging in there or whatever. Yes. And it felt good. That's incredible. That's incredibly valuable to them, because a lot of people are living in a really dark worldview, and they're just basically trying to stand it, through all the constant torture. And if you bring some other kind of energy into that, it changes it completely. Yeah, it did for me. I got a lot out of it. Have the picture of something coming up that solves the money issue, rather than the picture of needing it, the picture of it already being solved. And that picture you can put emotion with. Okay, I'm having a hard time doing that. Yeah, because we're not used to it. But you have to talk to the mind, because it's really the mind that pushes the button on which picture to make. So if you're, working on your relationship with your mind, then mind has the ability to help you with this immediately. Okay, I'll put that out there. It's like the mind is your manager or the person in charge of the company, but you own the company. So you're directing policy. And if you give the mind appreciation, which it hasn't gotten before, it gets really happy and just wants to help you. Oh, I know what that feels like. Yeah. So you just shower it with appreciation, and then give it a chance to work in harmony with what your policy and your plan and your vision for the future is. And it will show you what it's capable of.
Okay, I am spirit allowing to flow through, and I can appreciate my foreman, which is my mind.
Yeah, the mind has access to all the information, including what people call unconscious. It's not unconscious to mind. It has no maturity and no wisdom, which is why it needs you. But it has all the information.
Cool. All right. Well, I don't know if anybody else is on, and I had one other question.
Sure.
You know how people say that the life is in the blood?
Yeah, I've read and heard that.
I don't understand what that means as far as, like, the life is energy. And so even like you were talking about, a rock can have energy, right?
That's right. A rock has consciousness, actually. It's just not the same kind as a person.
So how can that relate to the statement that the life is in the blood?
You know, I'm not sure what was originally meant by that, but what I've seen is that every single part, every cell in your body, and it doesn't have to be a blood cell, any kind of cell, probably every atom, has self-awareness, consciousness, and life. So yeah, there's life in the blood, but not just in the blood. There's life in your bones, there's life in your eyes, there's life in every cell of your body, or it would be dead. So I don't think there's life only in the blood.
Okay.
You know, just because somebody wrote that doesn't mean it's the absolute end explanation of everything. And every single cell can be observed as a completely self-contained, self-aware being. And most of them are not blood cells. And I mean, they're doing all of the functions of an animal even. They're fighting off enemies, they're sleeping, they're reproducing, they're eating, and they're making decisions clearly about where to go at different times. They're alive and conscious. So you can see life is in everything. And when you start, in fact, since you mentioned rocks, a long time ago when more of the indigenous tribes around the world were very clear and conscious, they communicated with animals and birds and trees, and it wasn't that they were some superstitious idiots that, you know, didn't know about God. They were really in tune with the life force in nature in a way that modern people can barely imagine. And you can get that back now. You don't have to wait for, you know, some indigenous tribe to become really aware again. You can do it. And what happens is that you start getting responses from birds, from animals, from trees. Thoughts come into your mind that aren't yours when you're communicating with a tree, and it's quite amazing. And, you know, I'm aware of so many people wanting to say this is completely ridiculous, but it's still the reality. I mean, whether they think it's ridiculous or not really doesn't matter. It's happening. And you've got this, it's just like in your body, you've got this vast network of cells communicating with each other all the time, 24 hours a day. They're alive and they're talking, maybe not in English, but why does it have to be in English words? You know, they're communicating electrically. That's why this attack on us with 5G and everything is so nasty. It's because it's trying to interfere with the constant talking between one cell and another one, whether it's in your brain or your bones or whatever. And every part of nature is on another scale like cells in a body. So there are tree cells and rock cells and bird cells and fish cells and plant cells, and they're all talking with each other all the time as well. The only one that's really completely out of it is man. But the funny thing about that is that humans have the potential to become aware of all of it. And this place would be not the hell on earth that the rulers want to make, but it would be the opposite. So we have this vast ability that we kind of forgot. And all those beings, when you walk in nature or in your garden or something, every single one of these beings is aware of you, including plants, rocks, trees, everything, birds going by. And we just are oblivious up to now. So I'm just suggesting that we don't have to really stay that way. When you get opened up to what all these beings in nature are communicating, and those are just the physical ones that I mentioned, that's the minority. The non-physical ones are way more. And the more you start saying, well, it's okay actually if this is real, my arbitrary belief system is not the priority. What's true is the priority, because there's source or spirit or God behind it. It's not evil. It's something to become aware of. And once you start opening up to that, you're walking down the road and out in nature or something, and you feel all these incoming messages and impressions from all the life forms around you, and I'm including rocks and everything. And then you say, oh, wow, I had no idea. I thought everything except me was dead. Humans were this brilliant life form on the planet, and everything else is inanimate for us to, trash. It's not really like that. And even though the UN is trying to use this big hoax of the Gaia religion to enslave everybody, the funny thing about that is there's truth in it, and the earth is completely alive and conscious. It doesn't mean you need a new religion, but it does, offer the opportunity to start becoming aware. And life is around you constantly. This place is very crowded, but it's not crowded like a big city. It's crowded in complete harmony. So you're never, even for 1 second, by yourself. Nobody is.
Yeah,
we're just, walking around with our eyes closed. That's all.
I think that's going to be the same case for all religions. It's like everything. The rulers that want us to believe lies take a truth and will turn it twisted somehow.
Yeah, it's like, trying to help the earth is really good, but they're twisting it into something that, well, the best way to help the earth is actually to give up all your rights and stop using energy and all this stuff. And ultimately, it's like the bumper sticker that was in the 60s, save the earth, kill yourself. And that's not really, the highest expression of what you can do.
No. Well, speaking of frequencies, I have a friend who was cutting down some thistles, and they're really high. They're like 10 feet high around here.
Wow, okay.
But this person lived about, a few miles away. In a wilderness area. And was cutting thistles and found a crop circle in the tops of the thistles.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was a perfect, just bent them in half in a perfect circle, laid them down sort of horizontally, the top half of the stalks, and it was into the shape of a letter Q.
Wow. Well, it's just a reminder that if you're brave enough to start becoming aware of what's around you, suddenly you find out, there's all this human hellish stuff going on, but there's incredible magic, which is you don't have to go to some place where there's a, 5 mile across crop circle that has some, hidden meaning in it. It's everywhere. And if you start being conscious of where you are, the side effect is other people, if you ever open your mouth, may think that you're a little strange, but you're going to get so much inspiration and just awe from what we're walking in the middle of, and be amazed that we never noticed it before. That's incredible. But it's there.
Well, I don't know if it's a good one or a bad one. It could be from the 5G.
Not if it's a nice design. What happens with chaotic frequencies, it creates like what they were experimenting with on the water, when people were having a glass of water and they were projecting love and gratitude into one glass of water and some bad thoughts into the other one. The ones with the bad thoughts made ice crystals when they flash froze them that were really ugly and depressing and sickening to look at. And the ones that were projected by love and gratitude from the experimenting people who did that, they had these incredible art forms. And the same is true with anything that you see in nature. You get it when you get receptive and perceptive, you pick up energy from it. You don't have to wonder whether it's positive or negative. And most of the things you'll see out there happening in nature are all incredibly beautiful.
Okay, so do you feel that you just can tell internally, you'll just have a way to know just automatically when you're in tune and cleansed and not full of toxic waste?
Yeah, this is one of the things, if you will allow your mind to be in charge of thoughts and the emotions that run through all the time and realize that those are programs, and you're just going to start directing mind to make both the thoughts and the emotions go in certain positive directions, but you leave it with the mind. Don't think it's you. There's a clarity that leaves, that one of the results of which is you start knowing things. And you ask a question, you're going to get an answer and start perceiving stuff that you weren't able to see before. And people will wonder how in the world you knew something, but you're looking at it and it just appears self-evident and obvious. And more stuff is going to come in that category.
Okay, that's just the more pure a person gets physically, the more pure they get mentally and emotionally and physically, all those things.
It all goes together.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I mean, you can have really good energy and thoughts and intentions and stuff, and be eating a diet of pure garbage. But there's a conflict that happens in the body when you do that, because the energy frequency of the garbage food hurts your cells and your electrical field, and your consciousness is aware of that, whether it's you admit it or not. And it makes kind of a conflict that's going on. And if you're not making as many mistakes physically, then those kind of chaotic energies start getting less and going away. And then when you see the mind as playing the tapes with all the thoughts and emotions you thought were you and using for your identity, and you become the one who's observing that, suddenly your perceptive abilities go way up. It gets more and more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing I noticed is that my mind will replay what I talked to those people about.
Yeah, that's fine. That's okay.
Okay.
It's just experimenting, and I mean, I don't see anything really harmful about that. It's up to you, because you're the CEO of that company that the mind's a manager in, right? But that doesn't, sometimes when it replays it, it's actually a favor, because you might see something in there that you didn't realize before. So it could replay an interaction with somebody, and something in their tone of voice was there, and you didn't notice it at the time. But if it's an accurate replay, then it can give you a clue for further interaction with that person.
Yeah, I know that you told us that if we talk to other people, it's usually what we hear from them, if we're paying attention, is something that we need to hear.
Yeah, even if it's unpleasant, that's true.
Okay. I mean, for
it doesn't mean you necessarily have to agree with it. It means there's something in being willing to look at it that you can benefit from.
Okay, look at it.
Yeah, it's not about agreeing with it.
Okay. Well, that's good clarity. I wasn't sure on that one.
Yeah, because all kinds of stuff will come up, and what's in the words, the energy, that's in it, is instructive also. Somebody might have run into you today and been complaining about something that you were helping them with, but if your mind replays it, and you're clear and you know that replay is not you, it's a program of the mind, then you can listen to it with clarity because it's not you. And you may notice that, oh, this person just had their wife or husband die or something, and you get that from the replay.
Right.
And that gives you a clue of something for the future.
Yes, I have lots of people that are having trouble with spouses nearly dying.
Yeah, and some of it you'll hear in the replay, but you didn't hear in the live experience.
Right. The whole situation was very strange. It was right when I was getting kind of waking up and getting the day started, and then somebody knocked on the door, and it just blossomed from there throughout the whole day. But it was really neat. I mean, I'm really glad that I put aside what I was going to do and did that, because it was a whole different level.
I think it's a clue, if you can read it, that you have this huge power to affect what's going to be happening in your life.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I was concentrating on asking for help.
Yeah, okay. So what you're doing as a scientist, doing this experiment in the lab, which is your life, is you're saying, all right, let me get really clear on what it was I was feeling, what I was asking for, how I was feeling while I was asking that, what my thoughts were, what my pictures were when I asked that, and then look carefully at what happened and the feeling in it, and observe patterns. And then, just like a good scientist, you make an experiment to check out your theory of what happened, and you put out a new feeling, a new request, a new picture, and watch what happens after that. And you keep learning that way.
Okay, so I can modify my request by my experiment that what just happened.
Yeah. You're putting together how the system works, and just avoid any feeling that you understand it. You're just getting little pieces and looking for more pieces, because the minute you say, okay, now I understand it, that sets mistakes in stone, and they're harder to get rid of.
Oh.
You just say, look, I don't know much. I'm just beginner. I'm a preschool level student in this whole thing, but I'm learning and I'm enjoying it. So show me more.
Right. Well, that's where I know I'm at.
Yeah. So as long as we know that, we're open to being shown all kinds of stuff.
Okay. That means it's gonna come. The answers are gonna come.
Yeah, that's right. They're all trying to flood in right now as fast as we're open to them.
Wow. Yeah, when it rains it pours, they were flooding in.
Yeah, we don't have to go out and find them. A lot of times people go all around the world trying to find spiritual teachers and stuff, and then they finally end this huge trip from traveling all over the place, and when they're sitting at home on their couch or something, all this insight just floods in, and they realize it was always right there.
Within?
It's not in somebody else's hands.
It's inside of us, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm starting to look at myself as a trinity. I'm calling myself me, myself, and I.
Okay.
Because I'm realizing that I'm mind, body, and spirit, all three together into one person.
Yeah, but just remember the mind and the body are not you.
Oh, okay.
They're projections of you, but they're not parts of you, and that's what has been rarely realized.
Oh, they're more like the hologram.
Yeah, they're your kids, that you projected in order to deal with 3D life. And so they're closely connected with you, and they came from you, but they're not you. For example, if you think that your body's you, it's very difficult to get out of certain habits and addictions. But if you think that your body is your body and it's like your kid, and you just take care of it way because of caring about it, then whatever it's used to, you have compassion for that, but it's not you. You're relaxed and clear.
Oh, okay. So I don't really have to claim them as part of the whole.
Well, I mean, we're all part of spirit, so we're all the same that way. But as far as functioning in the world is concerned, the more you can identify as just who you actually are, which is consciousness or spirit or whatever word you want to put on it, then the body is like a vehicle, but it's a living vehicle that you've projected to help you. And the same thing with the mind. But they become living. They're living kids, and they are focused on you all the time, and they want to be in communication. So you can do that, but not as you. They're more like your kids. At least that's what I've seen.
So they're not like a hologram?
They are a hologram, but the hologram appears real, and what we do in it matters. Even though this whole thing is a dream, and we've never really left our original state, but it might as well be real because we're experiencing it that way. And everything that we do in it affects our consciousness really deeply. So, we have to treat it as if it's real.
Oh. Okay, so give it a animation. Like I know you can personify certain things just to get a point across. So I'm personifying myself in my mind and body.
Yeah, but it really is more like your kids than yourself.
Oh.
Okay,
well,
because if your kid is throwing a temper tantrum, that's not you. If it was you, you'd be all distressed and couldn't really deal with it very well. But if you're calm and clear, and you see your kid going crazy and throwing a temper tantrum, as the parent, you have the wisdom and the energy to calm it down.
Well, I just tell my mind we're not going to do that bouncing thing. We're not going to go off one extreme or another. We're going to stay level.
Yeah, exactly. And just it's the energy that you give it that's the most powerful. So it's a calming, comforting, appreciative energy. The mind is fine.
Okay.
Does not get upset.
That makes it easier.
Yeah, it's nice. It's exactly like taking care of a kid. When you're explaining things to a 2-year-old kid, it's not the complex logic that really makes it. It's the energy of comforting and reassurance that makes a difference.
Oh, I've been using logic on mine. I better start switching that up.
Yeah, it works really well because it's not a mature individual, and it's not going to be. It's not going to grow up any more than your goats will. So, they resonate with the energy that you project. And they feel like everything's okay if that's the energy you're putting out.
Got it. I know that when they get outside the fence and I want them to go back in and I go, shoo, go back in the fence, they act all scared like they're really afraid of me. And they won't herd well. But if I go, oh, come here, girls, I got a treat, they'll come right over like they're my best friend, and they'll follow me right into the barn.
So see, that's exactly how you deal with the mind. Precisely like that.
Okay. Well, I've had a lot of practice with my goats. They're very interesting creatures.
Yeah, they're perfect. And they've got their own version of mind, too. And if you tune into that, like you're saying, they'll go right in. Wherever you want them to go, they'll go.
Cool. Well, I think the best food for them is probably going to be the field up there eating the weeds, but I can't.
Yeah,
they expect grain and stuff and hay at night. That's just what they're used to having, so I don't know how I'm going to work that.
Yeah. You just have to do the best you can in an imperfect environment and keep looking for ways to do it better. And play around with the image of everything being worked out and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I did try rabbit pellets, and they did good on them.
Oh, good. Okay. Those might be pretty good.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate all the input. I've had some really neat things coming across. I'm starting to catch signs.
Yeah.
Like a certain kind of bird or a certain color or things from my past that remind me of people in my past and stuff.
There's a lot of stories about those signs and omens and things in old stories of indigenous tribes and things, and it wasn't because they were ignorant savages. They were really observant, and they noticed that, there's life in nature and it's talking all the time.
Yeah.
So anybody can get back to that.
It's interesting. I'm very amazed.
Yeah. Well, people are enjoying your sharing all this stuff on the show all the time, so I appreciate it too.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the show, period. I mean, it's a great encouragement.
Yeah, I just want people to get back to their normal, super happy state, not because they're drugged out of their minds, but because they're reconnected to reality. And that's what I would like to see. I think we can definitely do that. And the way to do it with other people is just 100% do it to yourself.
Bravery and courage.
Once you realize that the mind and the body are separate individuals, just like your goats, then the question eventually comes up, wait a minute, if all the thoughts and emotions are programs, and those are coming up from the mind, what am I? And you're the one observing, you're the clear consciousness who's watching everything. And as soon as you start identifying with that, it begins the normal perceptions and abilities coming back.
Okay. Well, so that's a higher perspective.
Yeah, you're just automatically going to start knowing a lot of stuff that is fun.
All right. Have a very wonderful week.
Yeah, you too. Tell us what happens next time. And you can always share things on the forum if you feel like it in the meantime. But it feels like we're on these weekend shows every 10 minutes, so it's not really.
I know, time just goes flying by, but I have things to share. I will try to get a few on there.
Okay.
Okay, good night.
Have a good night. See ya. Okay, that was Dee, as everybody knows, in California. And we're going to see what's happening with John, who just came in. Hi, John. What's going on?
Not much. Good evening to you, Doug, and Dee. I hope you're all doing well.
Yes, nice to hear your voice.
Thank you. I was listening to your conversation with Dee, and I had some questions that kind of basically mimic the ones that I already had, so it's great to hear kind of expand on them.
Okay.
And one of them was kind of continued. Do we have to hear some kind of acknowledgement from the mind when we're having a conversation with it, or is it just a one-way conversation where we're talking and then it'll take information and that's it?
I think that's going to be a natural evolution. You know, if you start, the main thing that I've found that makes the difference is focusing in on it as a separate self-aware entity that is playing the buttons, the different programs. And what I've gotten in doing that myself is more of a feeling, of the mind getting calm and harmonious and more cooperative. Not always necessarily saying something in particular, but just kind of, the idea of resonance, that two guitar strings, if you play one of them, the other one wants to start vibrating at the same frequency. And if you have a feeling of comfort and reassurance and acknowledgement and appreciation toward mind, you'll feel it start having a different feeling. It's like it's calm, and it's not playing pictures of chaos so much and bringing up, emotions of fear and stuff like that, it starts to play tapes that are in harmony with the way that you would like to feel. And that's the main response I felt from it, more than specific words. But it could be whatever your particular mind wants to convey to you. So I'd be open to whatever there is.
Right.
But it's what you're putting out that matters. And you, if you want feedback to know whether it's working, watch how you feel.
Okay. And,
because the emotional programs are going to change.
Okay. And then basically, as you feel, that's your acknowledgement right there.
Yeah, that's going to change. As soon as you are, first of all, acknowledging your mind as an actual being, which most of us have never done, and communicating to it that you just, like Dee was saying about her goats, they have to feel like you really like them and everything's great and you appreciate how great they are and everything, and then they want to do things for you, even goats. And your mind is much more conscious than the goats in a way. And if you're acknowledging it as a separate being and saying how impressive and great it is and mean it, it can't be fake. And then say, and if you'd like to really help me with some of this grown-up stuff, I actually think that you're maybe ready to start doing some of it with me, then mind is really going to want to do that. I've seen that in every case. And you're just going to start really feeling different.
And then the compliments that you give the mind, he kind of lowers the come along.
Your sound is kind of breaking up, John. I'm trying to hear you.
Sure, sorry about that. So basically, the compliments we give to the mind are kind of like the treats that he uses to coerce the goat to come along.
Yeah, but the key is it has to be honest. Because, mind really is impressive, even if it's been driving you crazy. Its ability to do that by bringing up images of all kinds of things to worry about and, that somebody said some bad thing and you should feel bad about them. It's really quite a high skill level that mind has demonstrated. Maybe it's been used for complete disruption of everything, but it's demonstrating ability, which is really there. And if you're praising that, you're being honest. And you're just saying, and you're realizing you're the one who's supposed to have been directing mind all along. So it's not the fault of the mind who has no wisdom that is coming up with these chaotic thoughts and emotions. And so you appreciate what a great, powerful work the mind does all the time, and then says, I'm really sorry I wasn't giving you more attention and acknowledgement all along, and now I'm going to give you some grown-up stuff to help with. It's going to be fun if you'd like to help me. And it'll just fall all over itself to help you.
Okay, and if we're spirit and the mind and the body are separate, does that mean it's like in my case? So the mind is John, and basically the spirit force is bigger than that?
Well, names are just names, but your individual identity really is in spirit. It's not in the mind. Mind is just a whole complex of programs. And your sense of being yourself doesn't require a name. It's who you feel that you are when everything calms down.
I was just wondering how much of the experiences we accumulate as a particular person in this incarnation are part of the body and the mind, is that not part of our spirit? I guess it's kind of still not quite sure.
They're saved in your mind from lifetime to lifetime, because I've experienced that. But the you that is permanent is really beyond that stuff. It's just that you have access to all the memories. But the you is clear and limitless, and it's just open consciousness. But it's that feeling of yourself is not dependent on those thoughts and emotions, because when they quiet down, and they stop temporarily, you're still you. They were never what was making you. You're the awareness that notices them.
Okay.
It's kind of a little bit hard to grasp in intellectual terms, but it gets easier once you start relating to the mind and the body as separate entities, and you see how they start helping you and coming into harmony with what you would like. Then you start automatically realizing you're the person that's been talking to them, not the one that's, the whole mesh of programs and ideas and coming and going feelings and all that stuff. You are not temporary and changeable like that.
Right.
But that discrete sense of identity is still you.
Right. I'm kind of asking from the standpoint of, like, say somebody is already on a raw food diet and basically taking care of themselves with good lifestyle habits, but they're still experiencing like a chronic, health problem. And in the past, you've talked about how that may have a base in an unhealthy program that needs to be worked out. Is that an unhealthy program then coming from the spirit, or is that an unhealthy program that's coming from the mind and body?
No, there's nothing unhealthy in spirit the way I mean spirit. It's always pure beauty.
So there's some kind of disease or condition that's coming from the mind-body half.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe from something in a past time, And so it's still a program in the mind, and it can still be changed if we develop a good relationship with the mind.
And that would be, again, quite a few people back I know in LA who are taking care of themselves, health problems.
Yeah, then it could be something on a more subtle level that is being played, just like Dr. Bankston was talking about, carrying around this image in the subconscious of something being solved, right? And if we're doing that system like we have been, but carrying around an absolutely strong image of some really bad limitation or problem, then the subconscious is going to try to keep that real, because that's what it does. Whether it's a problem or a solution, it does that.
So it's a question of these people that, their minds on a regular basis, asking us to resolve the issue.
Or even understand it, and then say, is this something that we can change around and start to make it better, and just start having the picture, because you're directing the mind, right? The mind is following orders. And if it's doing something negative now, it's because it was given that freedom to do that in the past by us. So if we say, all right, we really appreciate you, we have a good relationship, and you have to really establish that with appreciation. And then you say, okay, now here is what I would like to have replace this program of limitation. And it's going to have a picture and a feeling of everything being in harmony and really good. And you start making that constant because you're the director. And then it's up to the mind to make that happen. So that's something that can be done starting anytime.
Excellent.
So I think you have to do both. And then the physical and the mental stuff.
Activating the Merkaba. Is the Merkaba something that the mind can be asked to address or work with, or that's our half, the spirit half?
I think from what I've heard, and I can't actually prove this one way or another yet, because I'm not at that point, but from what I've heard about the Merkaba, it is connected with mind. And it's one of the really positive, protective, programmable functions of the mind that has been dormant for a long time in most people.
So in our conversations with the mind, we can as well.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what is really necessary to activate the Merkaba. I've heard different versions, but what I did is, out of that book that I referred you to, The Ancient Secret of the Flower of Life, And in volume 2, there's specific steps. And I don't know absolutely whether that worked, but I do know that after doing that, I tried programming it and using it in different ways, and I got the results that I wanted. So what that means, I don't absolutely know, but that's the only one that I really have experience with.
And now the instructions are in book 2, not book 1.
Right, but book 1 kind of leads up to it.
And those can be
so I would still recommend getting both if you can.
Amazon.com.
Yeah, exactly.
Going through the Lost Arts Radio program.
Yeah, sure, that would be great. And that's the way that I played with it. And all I can say about it is just it seemed like a really positive experience to me. And I think it has great potential. And not only for programmable protection around yourself and your own body, but it's also possible, according to what's taught there, to put protective Merkabas around bigger areas as well. And I haven't gotten too much into that yet, but I really agree with people who are saying that, you know, it's a good time to work on defensive countermeasures so that people can be unaffected by the microwave technology.
Well, speaking of, protection from those things that you were talking about, EMFs and 5G, I heard that Ken Roma is supposed to be going to Bosnia to look at the Bosnian pyramids this month. Are you scheduled to speak with him when he returns?
I have access to him whenever I want, but I think that we had mentioned at one point that I would like to talk to him when he comes back and have him share with everybody what he experiences over there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I heard him speak before he left, and he had quite a bit of different things on the agenda, so I'm excited to hear what he finds.
Yeah, he's looking at some other places that he may end up living as well. So whether he decides to do that or stay in the U.S., I don't know what's going to happen. But, generally people have involvements and pull to different areas based on what they've done before. So it depends who's waiting for him over there. I don't know.
Yeah, we've discussed that. I think also in the past. From the mind or some higher source, whether or not it's time to move or if a move would be beneficial. That would be something.
That's right. Yeah, the mind has access to all the information connected to everything in the world. So, including what people call subconscious and unconscious. It's all fully conscious to the mind. So it's a big advantage of making a good relationship with the mind, because then you indirectly have access to pretty much everything else on that level.
Okay. Well, I've still been getting a lot of information through my dreams, but a lot of it is symbolic, so I'm still trying to sort out.
Yes.
Basically what some of it means, what doesn't.
Okay, if you're getting a lot of clear dream information, you can also kind of program yourself before you go to sleep to show you the way to understand some of it, and sometimes that works.
Yeah, it's getting a little clearer. There's still some symbolism, but sometimes it'll be a dream where there's like a book or something that's giving me lots of information. Even though I'm not reading it, I'm just looking at the book, but it's giving me lots of information. It's a little clearer than it was before, not quite as much symbolism and confusion.
Yeah, good. Well, as long as it's going in that direction, that's great. I mean, it's going to take its own natural time period to get completely clear, which is okay.
Is there a point where that transfers over to the waking? Something that stays in the dream?
There's a point where you feel like you're functioning pretty much like the same as when you're awake in the dreams, but your body's completely resting.
And that's kind of what people who are considered psychics or who have intuitive abilities are, then basically people who are communicating this way.
There's a lot of different variations of how that shows up in individual people's lives, but from what I've seen myself and people I've talked to, the dreams get more and more just completely conscious. And when somebody in a dream asks you a question, you answer it pretty much exactly like you would answer it during the day.
Good.
Yeah, it's a fun journey that you just barely get started, and there's a lot to it.
Oh yeah, and it's been very helpful that you and Doug have this program, and people like me calling in and sharing experiences. I said, I had a question, and she is laughing because I'm like, oh, that was my question.
Exactly. No, I think it's great, and I know that people who write to me are saying that they enjoy hearing from both of you guys all the time, because it brings up such interesting things from different points of view, and it's really helpful to everybody. So it's nice of you to share all of that.
I appreciate it. And before I forget, then also you talked about in the past bodybuilding and exercise, especially for people who are on a raw food diet, with not only change their lean mass but to increase it. And I wonder if there's any kind of new tips or tricks that you've learned in your experiments that can help people who are naturally very lean on a raw food diet, building up a little bit of extra muscle mass.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm still in the middle of an experiment with that at a pretty basic level. I've increased the intensity that I'm working out at the gym, in order to do the experiment. And, by conventional nutritional standards, I should be getting just emaciated, and weak and not being able to do it. And that's not happening so far. And in fact, I'm cutting back the amount of food still, and it's being adequate. And because my thought was, if it's really good live food that has high energy and organic and fresh and all that stuff, it should actually require less of that than the usual types of things that people eat. But I don't have all the information yet. I'm looking at all the really great not just professional bodybuilders, but people who get in great shape for movies by super hard exercise, and most of them eat variations of chicken, steamed broccoli, and brown rice, or sweet potatoes, or something like that. It's almost always the same. And that's because they found that works. It has beautiful results. It's just that in the long run, it doesn't have as good health results as the raw food. So my question is, do you have to choose between being in fantastic muscular condition and being healthy in the long run, or can you do both? And I'm sure there's a way to do both. So I'm still right in the midst of that experiment. I don't know what's going to happen yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, and even then, sometimes it doesn't work. What about an Asian actor who has come to Hollywood to shoot an action picture, and they tried to, add some muscle to his frame by giving him the chicken and broccoli diet, and apparently he just kept getting very ill. On his, diet.
Yeah, it doesn't always work. I mean, I guess it works in enough people so they have all the movie stars they need, but what I've been doing since I started working really hard physically, I've actually been cutting down the amount of food that I'm eating because I was feeling too stuffed. So I'm just trying to stay completely open to what happens and be able to hear what it's saying, because I'd like to contribute that knowledge, to the people that want to be in really fit, good condition and stay on a diet that eliminates having to get sick and degeneration and all that.
Yeah. It's curious because there's some martial artists I know that put into the schools that I frequent. And some of them are on a really tight budget, almost eating next to nothing. So they're a very low-calorie diet. With how the jiu-jitsu, grappling, and a lot of different changes they do, they still develop physique.
Well, you were breaking up again a little bit, John. I didn't hear the last thing you said.
Also, even though they're on a very low-calorie diet, just by doing the jiu-jitsu and some of the traditional martial arts, practice and sparring, they're still developing really impressive physique.
Yeah, exactly. So, what we're told are the real nutritional requirements is not a complete understanding. And I'm just really interested in adding more to it, finding out what's really going on if we can.
Yeah, well, I'd be excited to hear what you find. Definitely an underexplored area.
Yeah. I'm I don't, by normal standards, what I'm doing should be counterproductive because I'm cutting down the food and radically increasing the exercise. So what's going to happen, I don't know. We'll see.
Definitely keep us posted.
Yeah, I will. It's super interesting. So.
Awesome. All right, well, much appreciated. And thank you. In case there's somebody else waiting online, I won't keep waiting online. Thank you, Doug, and Dee, and everyone else that listens and contributes to the show.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for being one of the stars every week. I appreciate that very much, too.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care.
Okay, talk to you soon. See you.
Bye.
Okay, so that was John in Texas, and pretty interesting discussions. We're all just exploring, and I think that's the main thing is we're all beginning students in this. I often have wished that we'd have somebody else more qualified to teach more of this stuff than I am because I'm such a beginner, and I spent most of my life just in as many bad habits as everybody else and being what looks like to me like so out of it at this point. I mean, I'm really sorry that I wasn't more conscious in most of my life, but it has resulted in learning some things because I got extensive demonstration in, what happens when you make this mistake and this mistake and this mistake, and you lose everything that you have and your body starts falling apart and little things like that. And that gives me, for me, it's a stronger level of understanding than reading about all this stuff in a book somewhere. So it's actually a benefit. It's just hard to grasp that sometimes when you have to go through experiences that aren't too pleasant, but that do end up teaching you something. So we're just keeping an open mind and learning, and like Dee and John were pointing out, learning to have a positive, clear, honest relationship with your mind and your body as your kids, literally on a spiritual level, opens up all kinds of amazing perception that were not there before. And I don't know for a fact that would happen for everybody, but this is what I've seen so far. And everyone that I've talked to who's been attempting to do it it's experiencing similar results. And it's like a lot of our blindness to what has been happening around us and in us has been thinking that we are the body or we are our thoughts and emotions. And it makes it almost impossible to unravel all that stuff and get any clarity. But once you see it as outside of yourself, deep, closely connected, but it's not you. It's not what you depend on or where you originate. It changes absolutely everything. And I think the abilities of the mind as a self-aware entity to help us, instead of just running around at random, generating chaotic, self-destructive thoughts whenever it feels like it, the potential of it to actually be a super positive and incredibly powerful force in our lives is beyond what I can see the limits of right now. Something really pretty totally incredible. So I'm going to give people maybe another minute or so to call in, and then we're going to assume that we've just got a little chance to shut down a few minutes early tonight and go deal with some other work that's waiting for me. In the meantime, I want to remind people tomorrow night's show with the editor-in-chief and general manager of Acres USA. I think that you might find that really interesting if you're into organic farming and environmental issues and things like that, because they're doing incredibly important work. And I invite you to join me tomorrow night at 6 o'clock Pacific or 9 p.m. Eastern if you can, or at least hear the archive if you're in a time zone that makes that difficult. And in the meantime, if you've got the means to do it, to support Lost Arts Radio, and go look at lostartsresearchinstitute.com as well, because on that site we have a little bit of a glimpse of the school and the ultimate project that I'd like to see built. And I think that would be, seems to me, a really beneficial thing for us to do. But we won't do it if it's a question of taking money from a source that would corrupt the energy. I would rather just keep talking to you guys on the air and doing what we can this way. So whatever's meant to happen is okay with me. Also on the lostartsradio.com is Doug's program, the Diamond Report, and I would recommend you take a look at that. There's a playlist there with the reports going back to the beginning. And as we were talking about with Dee, the forum is there. It's totally free. If any of these ideas that we've talked about interest you guys at all and you want to exchange impressions with other listeners or people that look at the forum, then it's right there on lostartsradio.com. You can sign up for that for free. There's no money involved. There's also a completely free newsletter that's been coming out every week. We're keeping up with that pretty well lately. And it's got information, extra information on upcoming shows and other things that are happening in the world and things that I wanted to share with you. And so if you decide to take on the work that we're talking about and try it out in your own life, working on your own health, which I hope that you decide to take back into your own hands. Getting healthy is not, in my experience, just a matter of being on drugs, even though the medical industry wants us to do that. There's what looks to me like a far, far better way to do it. And if you decide to start doing the work to get your health back, get your energy levels up, deal with your mind and your body consciously, then let us know what happens. And you can do that on the Saturday show like this one, which is every week so far for quite a while, and we'd like to hear from you. Or if you're in a time zone where you can't be with us live, send it by email. You know what's been happening with you, richard@lostartsradio.com, or share it on the forum, which is at lostartsradio.com. And so come tomorrow night. I hope you can make it to the show. Meet me here next time, and have a great week, and we'll see you then. Thanks.